I was like the poster child for being the eldest daughter in the sense of like, I really tried to do all of the things that were like expected of me. Like I wanted my parents to be proud of me. I wanted them to talk about me at parties and say that like how proud of me they were. And I did all of those things, pretty much like teenage years, college, 6-figure job, married my high school sweetheart, all those things until I kind of like feel like I woke up one day when I was 31 and realized like, why am I not happy? Why does my life on the outside look a certain way? But I just feel like I couldn't imagine things continuing on. Like I couldn't imagine my career continuing. I couldn't imagine my marriage continuing and having kids. And when you start to be afraid of like your current path actually working out, and that feels terrifying, something has to change.
Welcome to the Chingona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erica Cruz. Hello, and welcome back to Chingona Revolution podcast. I know I say this every time I have a guest that I'm so excited, but I'm extra excited because of a few reasons. One, this is a longtime friend. I can't believe we can even say that now, that we're longtime friends.
I know.
Yeah. And okay, so that's the first thing. But secondly, I'm sitting in front of her and there's just something so magical about in-person interviews. And I'm just excited to do more of them. But this person is honestly like my role model and like the mother I wish I had. And no offense to my mom. Like I love my mom, she did the best with what she had, but this individual is just super mom, does everything that she can to understand her daughter. And I mean, we talk about human design and like she really puts effort into learning more about her daughter so she can be the best mother, and just learning also from her own wounds on how she can be the best mother. And that also translates to just being such an amazing friend and being such an amazing space holder. And this is so not a traditional introduction. And the person that is here in front of me is none other than Mariela de la Mora. Welcome. Mariela is a leadership coach. She is a mom to an amazing daughter and an amazing friend, eldest daughter of immigrants, generational healer. I mean, all the things. Welcome, Mariela.
Oh my gosh, you're going to make me cry with that intro. I was like, Erica, I'm so excited for us to be here.
Yes, and you recently launched a podcast, and I'm so excited about it.
I know. I feel like it's a whole identity of like having your voice out in the world in that way, and then it feels like vulnerable and exciting. So yes, I'm excited to have it out in the world for sure. And I'm getting a little bit of like a taste of like the behind the scenes from your podcast of like, this is like production on a different level that I haven't done. And I was like, Erica, help me. Like, how do I do this? But it's like, yeah, at a certain point, you didn't know how to do this either. And now you're almost on your 100th episode.
Yes. Well, by the time this airs, we will be past 100
oh my gosh.
episodes.
Yes.
Yes. So, okay, let's backtrack. Tell us, I gave my version of an intro, but tell us who you are. Because a lot of people, I mean, hey, if they follow me on Instagram, then they probably follow you too. But tell us who you are for the people who may not know you.
Yeah. So I am the eldest daughter of immigrants, Mexican immigrants. Definitely would say that I was like the poster child for being the eldest daughter in the sense of like, I really tried to do all of the things that were like expected of me. Like I wanted my parents to be proud of me. I wanted them to talk about me at parties and say that like, how proud of me they were. And I did all of those things, pretty much like teenage years, college, 6-figure job, married my high school sweetheart, all those things until I kind of like feel like I woke up one day when I was 31 and realized like, why am I not happy? Why does my life on the outside look a certain way? But I just feel like I couldn't imagine things continuing on. Like I couldn't imagine my career continuing. I couldn't imagine my marriage continuing and having kids. And when you start to be afraid of like your current path actually working out, and that feels terrifying,
Yeah.
you know something has to change. So I spent the next 10 years kind of dismantling that and like rediscovering who I am, burning it all down and starting all over again. So I would say that like in so many ways, like I'm a phoenix, the phoenix that like burns in the fire and like rises from the ashes. Like I have kind of burnt down all of the conventional boxes that you would put an eldest daughter of immigrants in, including divorce, including quitting the job, like all these things, which, you know, we will probably talk about today, but I think that's what it is. I'm just like a box breaker. Like I've just
A box breaker. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so good.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
that's so good.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and now, I mean, I think like even in kind of like rediscovering who I am, kind of like meeting myself for the first time, I would say like my 30s were very much that way. A lot of that has, you know, kind of culminated in like, well, if I'm stripping away all of these things that I used to say are me, like, you know, and you think about, you say, well, who are you, right? You're like, well, I'm a daughter and I'm a this and I'm a marketing director. Like there were a lot of things that I was that it was like, I don't even know how to answer that if I wasn't giving like a title. And so I think now I am a healer. I am, you know, I want to be a role model. Like I am a mom, but I think I'm also just someone who like wants to set an example of like what's possible for other people in terms of like defining who they are and not like putting themselves in a box.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I feel like your community should be called the Box Breakers or something like that.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Breaking out of boxes, breaking cycles. I mean, that was
Yeah.
a big thing too, is that like it's breaking boxes, but also like breaking cycles of just being like doing what's expected of you and kind of making decisions based on like what feels safe and like what makes your family look good versus like who you really are like underneath. Because I think that was a lot of the decisions of like, well, it makes sense. Like I'm at this point, so I guess the next logical step is this. But it feels like it's like a recipe, like you're following someone's recipe and you're like, I don't even want to eat this. Like I don't want this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as what you're describing, I think so many people listening can relate to that. Obviously, they've heard my story, which we have different things that have happened in our lives, but it's the same narrative of like, I followed this recipe. Why don't I like the cake?
Yeah.
This isn't the cake I want, right?
Yeah. And it's like, do I want to spend the rest of my life making myself like it? Or do I want to like throw this all out?
Yeah.
And so I think that was, I feel like I almost wanted, like, I say specifically how old I was when I feel like I woke up from this, because I think there's a lot of people and daughters of immigrants who think I should be further along by now. I should have figured out my life by now. And I'm like, no, I followed all of the stuff that was expected of me my entire 20s. I don't think that I woke up and even asked myself one deep question until I was 31. But then I felt like I started living. Like when I tell my story, I kind of intentionally skip my 20s. I don't skip them, but I go, okay, I graduated college. I got my master's. I married my high school sweetheart who I was with for 13 years. We bought a house. And I just feel like I can say it in like 15 seconds or less. But when I talk about when I woke up and was kind of like, who am I really separate from all of other people's expectations of me? Like, I think we enter chapters of our life that we spend more time telling those stories. And that's when we really get to know ourselves.
Yeah.
And I just felt like I couldn't live another year, that it was just another blip in time, because I was just going through the motions. And when I stopped going through the motions, like I really, even though a lot of parts of it were difficult or painful or vulnerable, like I spent more time telling those stories because it was when I really like lived my life. I feel like I didn't really start living.
Tell me about that moment when you were 31. Where were you? What were your thoughts? What were you feeling?
Yes. And I remember it so like specifically because it isn't always like one day that you just wake up and, you know, it sounds so simple when I say it that way. But really what happened was, I think when if you're not 30 yet and you're listening to this, there's something about when you turn 30 that you kind of like assess your life and you're just like, damn, probably you're not where you thought you'd be because you have no freaking idea. Whenever you make a judgment about when I'm 30, it feels like you should be so established, know what you're doing. Maybe if you want kids, like you have kids, or if you want to be married, maybe you're married. Like there's just all of this stuff. But then when you get to 30 and you're not where you thought you were, I feel like some people will go through this, like, I don't know, like a reassessment of like, do I want to keep going? Like, do I want to keep going based on where I am? So for me, that was, I'm 30, I'm married, we've been together forever. I've never had another boyfriend. This is the only boyfriend I've ever had. He's all I've ever known. And the idea of having kids with him was like terrifying to me. I was like, I would feel so trapped, even though we're married. And I was just like, what the hell is happening? And so I, at that point, was like, the only thing that I knew how to do was, okay, I can't solve these big problems in my life right now and these big questions I don't know how to answer. But I knew at the time I didn't feel confident in my body. And so I, at the time, was like, I want to start taking care of myself and like eating differently. And so I started doing like P90X, which was very like popular at the time. It was like this, yeah. And so like I would come home from work, do P90X in the living room. I started doing like the Atkins diet, which is like very extreme, but at the time it was just like curbing your carbs. And I lost 42 pounds in 9 months. And I had to throw out all my clothes and all of that. And I feel like a part of that was like, oh, like I'm literally putting my clothes in a bag, getting rid of it. Like I feel like I look so different. Like I went from like, I dropped like a few sizes but I felt really good about myself. And I think I didn't know at the time, but I think my higher self was talking to me and being like, well, how can you show yourself love right now? Because I wasn't acting like, I wasn't treating myself like someone that I love. And so I think that's what happened was like, I started treating myself like someone I love. And then what happened was like, there was infidelity in my marriage the whole time. Like there was always like some chick in his phone or something. And because we were fighting about it, I felt like, well, I'm standing up for myself because I'm fighting with him, but I'm not leaving him. So something about me doing that, the next time I found something that shouldn't have been happening, it's like a different person showed up and was like, no, this is never going to change. It's never going to change. You thought marriage was going to change him. It's not going to change him. You got to go. And I was able to leave while he was gone and go to my mom's house and just move in there and like hear myself again, because I would hear his voice in my head telling me I was crazy, telling me I was exaggerating. And it was like, I didn't trust myself. I just needed to go. And I felt like everything in my higher self was like, go somewhere and stick your fingers in your ears and be like, stop talking to me. I need to hear myself. And I think it was my higher self being like, I'm trying to talk to you, but you can't hear me because there's so much noise.
Yes.
I need you to go. I need you to go where I can reach you. And I think that's what I was doing at the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so powerful. There's two things I want to go back to. And that I told you this episode was going to, I was like, it doesn't matter where it goes. It's going to take a journey somewhere.
Yeah.
But okay. So first and foremost, initially you were looking for almost validation and love from your marriage. And when that didn't come from there, you didn't specifically say that, but
yeah.
you weren't giving yourself that.
Mhm.
And the moment you began to give yourself that, it empowered you to walk away. Right.
Yes.
Because you realized like only you can. And that was probably your higher self as well. Having you go work out and do the things that you know were good for you.
Yes.
So, and then secondly, we can't hear the inner voice when we have people yelling in our ears, right? Like we can't hear our intuition and those inner whispers when there's so much going on. And there's so many people that are afraid of spending time alone.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So actually in reality, I was afraid to be alone. I was afraid to be alone single. I was afraid to go to lunch alone. Like I couldn't do anything alone. I felt like I was the person who consulted with everybody about everything I should do. And I would only end up like more confused. And I just was never alone. I was always with somebody, something, in my ear or whatever. And so when I left that relationship and it was a divorce. Like I quick after that filed for divorce, After that, it's like the whisper was like, okay, now what's next?
Mhm.
And I was living in in Brisbane, right outside of San Francisco, because we had an apartment there. And I was like, this isn't enough. And then I moved to San Diego, where I had friends that I had a couple of like mutual friends, and I went to visit because I was like single for the first time at 31. Like I had never dated. I had never had a boyfriend. And so like I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go to San Diego because I like how I feel here. I feel free.
Yeah.
This feels fun. It's sunny. Like people are social, you know? And so I went to kind of be away from like my hometown. And then that was okay for a while. And then I got another nudge. It was like, this isn't enough. Like, okay, now
How do
what's
you know
next?
these nudges? Because they're different for each person, but I'm
This is
curious
true.
as to how it shows up for you. Is it just an inner
Yeah.
knowing? Is it a bodily sensation? Is it a dream? Oh, you get visions.
I have gotten visions. I did. So I think it's two things. I've gotten forward memories, like future memories. And I think that's what's actually fueled like my kind of bigger, braver decisions, where I'm like, some future version of me came and was just like, hey, by the way, you're going to be fine. You're going to do this thing. And then they peace out. And I'm like, okay, I trust you. It's like,
I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I know I'm going to get there.
It was just like someone comes and shows you and like, here's your life. Okay, goodbye.
Yeah.
And I just have like trusted it. So I've gotten that. But I think that with the, like, I want to hear myself was I'll go to I will move away from familiarity in some form. So first I was moving away from the marriage, which was familiar. And then I moved away from my hometown, which was familiar. And then I'm there. And then I'm like, I'm still not like, this isn't enough. Like, what's another thing that feels too familiar that I don't like? And then it was like my job. So
I like how you almost whispered when you said that.
It was just like a job. Because I was like, I had the easiest, I was so freaking good at my job. I didn't have to work 40 hours a week. I was living in San Diego where I would literally go to day parties, like pool parties in the daytime. People would be like, there's a day party at the Lafayette Hotel at 1:00. And I'd be like, all right, I already freaking did my work. And so a part of me was like, Mariela, you're making six figures. You don't even have to work that hard. Mm-hmm. You're really good at your job. But it was like when comfort is like not enough, like familiarity, I was like,
comfort is discomfort, right?
Yeah.
When like it's no longer actually comfortable.
No. And so then what happened, and there's this specific moment that I remember of like how I made this decision. So what happened was like, I feel like the universe will like show us, it'll give us an out. It'll give us exits on the freeway. So I think that when you're not asking yourself the questions, you'll just chug along the freeway forever.
You're just on cruise control.
Yes. And there's an exit, but you're like not even thinking about the exit. And so this exit came up in my path, which was my company going through mass layoffs again. And the mass layoffs were, you can re-interview for another job at the same company. We're just restructuring. So everybody had to like lose their job and then reapply. And they just offered me a different role where I didn't have to reapply. And I remember asking HR, if I turn down the role, can I still get my severance pay? And they were like, yes, you can. And I was like, cool, definitely not going to like accept whatever the job is. But then I started having second thoughts because I was like, well, I'm making six figures. My life is hella cheap living in San Diego. I had a roommate. I went from paying like $2,300 a month to live on my own to $750 when I lived in San Diego. So I had all this money and I was like, this makes no sense. And I remember talking to one of my guy friends at the time, and we were like sitting in a coffee shop. We were like co-working, and he was just like one of these, like, he just listened really well and like asked a lot of questions. And I was just like, I feel like this sounds crazy. So I feel like I want to like tell you that I am just considering like whether or not I should take this job, or I was like, or the other option sounds crazy. It's like, I just kind of want to get my severance pay and like go to Europe, but I don't really know why. I don't know what I'm going to do there. I don't have a plan. And he said, well, if you were to leave your job and like go to Europe and it didn't turn out like how you thought, would you regret it? And I was like, no, I could just go get another job. Like, it's fine. And he's like, but if you stayed, would you ever like wonder what if? And I was like, all the time. He's like, okay, well, that's your answer.
Oh, I love those questions.
Yeah. It was so profound. And I was like, that's my decision, because I know that my backup plan is what I'm already doing.
Yeah.
Which is I could come back to my same company. I could go get another marketing job. It's fine. Like, that option was not going to go away just because I did this. So that was the beginning of me leaving my job, buying a one-way flight to to London. And the reason I went to London was because on my honeymoon to my husband that I had divorced at the time that all this was happening, I had a future memory of I was going to live there. And I saw myself walking to the tube station in West London wearing a gray peacoat, and all of that like came true. But I had to follow the nudge of you're supposed to be in London, which is why I brought myself to London for the month. And sometimes you don't know what the nudge means, but you're like, if I were to just go put myself where the nudge is telling me to go, the next step is going to be clear. You have to follow where's the nudge telling me to go. And not to be like everybody needs to move to Europe, but like if the nudge is telling you to do this thing and you're like, but why? The universe is not going to be like, let me give you a whole explanation. They're going to be like, girl, just go. I'm telling you where to go and where to be. And so I listened and I brought myself to London. And that's what ultimately like where I met my daughter's father, where I ended up moving, living for 2 years, starting a company there. Like I had a whole era of life in London, but it wouldn't have happened if I didn't follow the nudge.
When you had the moment, or whenever the vision came to reality about the gray peacoat and you walking to the tube station, when did it click for you?
Like, when did it click? Like,
that,
what does it mean?
This is the vision I had, or this is the future memory I had.
I think when I couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, I came home from my honeymoon. We went to 3 cities, but I didn't have that vision about the other 2 cities that we went to.
Sorry, no, I meant whenever the vision came reality, like whenever you were actually in London walking to the tube station wearing a gray peacoat, were you like, oh my gosh, this is what I saw? Did that moment happen?
It did. Oh my gosh. So I ended up living in West London, but that didn't really ever... I don't think that I thought about it at the time. I was just like, oh, well, I'm in London and I met him.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we like pray for things and we manifest things and it happens and we just kind of just like keep going. And it's not until we really reflect.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my gosh, I created that in my brain before it actually happened.
Because I don't know that you're thinking, I'm going to manifest this thing. It's just like you just follow the nudge or like you have this feeling. I totally did not think that at all. I think it was after I got the peacoat, I think, and it was in a charity shop. And I think it was just like, I don't know. I think I don't even think it was the day that I got the peacoat. I just think that I had a normal day where I was walking to the tube station. And I think I might have just like been looking. I think that's what it is. In my future vision, I was looking down at my boots as I was walking down the street, because there's these pretty tiles like outside of the tube stations. And I think different areas of London have different like beautiful tiles. And I was walking and I think I saw the corners of my peacoat as they went down, and it was like a fall day and it felt very crisp. And I think I had the exact vision happen where I was walking and I saw the bottoms of the gray coat and I saw the tile, and it was a different tube station than the one of where I stayed during my honeymoon. But I was like I literally am doing the exact thing that I said that I was going to do. Like, I'm living here and I'd never tried to like make it happen. I just like followed the nudges. Yeah. But even the gray peacoat, I wasn't like, I'm going to go get the gray peacoat. I wasn't even like a peacoat person. Yeah. It's just like a very British thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that makes sense. That would have been hilarious if we did this entire episode in a British accent. I actually haven't done one in a very long time, so I'm not sure if I can pull it off anymore. But if I talk long enough, I think I can. All right, I think it's coming back. I think
it's actually coming back. I think you can get away with it.
I think it's great. We're gonna have to use this
to do it. Oh, we're like a mess.
Oh man. Oh my God. I just headbutted my computer and knocked it off of my tarot card decks that are holding my computer up right now.
This is like the reality.
This is the reality. And this is actually very significant for my life. Tarot cards holding me together, holding my computer together, holding us together.
So true. And it's like the behind the scenes stuff too, where it's like, here's what you see, but underneath, my laptop is on a tissue box. And Erica's is on top of 3 tarot decks. And I thought you were bringing them here because you were going to pull my cards during the interview. I was like, Erica would do that.
We can totally do that. I thought about it too.
Because just so you guys know, like, Erica's been pulling cards for me about my dating life because I don't want to do it. But I know that that's a trauma response. And so the cards have been calling me out. Like, you pulled a card that like called me out in the best way. And I was like, I feel like the cards have something else to say to me. But I love that Erica's just like, we're going to ask the cards. and what they have to say.
Yes.
Yes. This is the person you've like allowed yourself to become, that you're like, I am like a spiritual guide for other people, you know? 'Cause you are.
Okay, so thank you for that. Back to you, because you just talked about dating, and I feel like this is actually, I wanted to talk about this because as I talk about courage, that is every time you've had to restart your life, it's been an act of courage, right? I mean, everything that you've done, and every time you've broken the boxes and broken out of the boxes and broken cycles, you are leading with courage. But you have a daughter, right? Yeah. You then, okay, what do you want to tell us about that phase in your life? Because what I want to then get to is where you find yourself now, where again you get to reinvent yourself. Again, you get to put yourself out there, and the courage it requires to begin dating again.
Yes. Yeah. So I think, to fast forward, like moving to London happened because during my solo travels, I met my ex-husband, my daughter's dad. We fell in love. We long distance dated. When you date a Brit, you pretty much have to get married or something, because it's hard to you can't really live in each other's countries. So we had very serious conversations up front. I lived there for 2 years, and I think we always think this is it for us. Because I was like, well, I'm committed. Like, I sold all my stuff. I sold my car. I'm here. I got a visa for my cat. This is it. Like, this is my life. But I thought that was it for me. And then it wasn't, because we were, trying to have a baby, and, the first 2 just didn't carry through. And by the time I got pregnant with my daughter, we had split up. So he ended it, and it wasn't what I thought. And I remember being like, this isn't the way that it's supposed to work. So I had to, a fuerzas, like to say in Spanish, I had to reinvent myself, because I couldn't stay in England, because I didn't want to have my daughter be born in the UK, to where she's a UK citizen. And then I have to jump through hoops to move back. I also was like, I only wanted to be here to be with my husband. So I'm just going to go back. So I had to reinvent myself as going from marketing director at one of the UK's top recruitment agencies for hospitality, being a tech startup founder, which I haven't talked about, but I had a dating app that I was the co-founder of, and I had to quit that because we weren't making money yet. I had to quit it because I just had to focus on becoming a mom. And I moved back in with my parents because it's to start a life in San Francisco and be on maternity leave and not make money. I just couldn't do it. So I reinvented myself at this point. As I'm still a marketing director, I was able to keep that job, but now I'm a single mother and trying to figure out, what does this look like for me? And that wasn't something that I chose, but it was something that I had to just rise to that, the challenge of something that I didn't expect.
Can you talk a little bit about this moment? Because I think people look at your Instagram now and think, oh, Mariela has it all together. She has a beautiful daughter, a multiple 6-figure business. She has a mastermind, an amazing group of friends, an apartment with a view in San Francisco. And very rarely do people get to see this part where you went from quote unquote having it all to then really having to swallow your ego and move back into your parents' house. So that they can help you raise your daughter. Or not just help you raise your daughter, but help you with the transition.
They did. And I needed it. It's there's so much of reality behind that. And I think that really what happened in those years was that was the catalyst that made me value and prioritize healing. Because even though I didn't know, I couldn't make the connections, I just knew I got married again, and I thought it was going to be different, but it felt like such an eerily similar situation to the first divorce. Only I felt like I didn't see it coming. And so I think I was like, oh my gosh, some pattern is happening here.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand the pattern or where it came from. So the reality really of those years was a lot of grieving, a lot of feeling my ego was really bruised, because I'm somebody who valued my freedom so much. I went and I lived across the world by, away from my family. I went from not being able to do anything on my own, and all of a sudden I'm being back in my childhood bedroom.
Yeah.
being with my parents in the living room like 24/7. Like it just felt like I was a little kid, but I was also a mom. So it was just a lot of like my ego, like being bruised and me grieving a divorce, honestly,
Yeah.
that I don't know that people fully realized that grief dragged out so much because I was seeing him every day so he could see her on FaceTime. So I saw him every single day for years. I mean, even still now. And I did it for her.
Yeah.
But that was the hard part, was like, I have been healing since I was pregnant. Like I got paired up with a nurse through San Francisco. Like I was on Medi-Cal when I first moved back, which is like food stamps. I qualified for food stamps. I was on Medi-Cal, which is free health insurance, because I went from having a full-time job to working part-time because I had a baby and I couldn't work full-time. And so they paired me up with a nurse. So really, I feel like my nurse was like my first coach, but I didn't realize she was a coach because I look back at our notes and she was like, what's your dream? Like, I want you to dream. I've never told the story, but I remember she was the first person who was like, if you know that you don't want to stay in like the workforce, what's your dream? Like, what do you want to do? And we started to make lists. She started to assign me things. She had me like write letters to myself. It was like the beginning of me doing mindset work. And I'm like, bless her, because she was a nurse that got sent to my house because I was like a high risk pregnancy mindset wise, like because of what I had gone through. And I think that was the beginning of me being like, okay, I'm going to process this. I'm going to grieve this. And then I'm going to, when I'm ready, like decide like what's next for me. But I had to go through living with my parents' house, recuperating my money, saving my money again. And then it was like one thing at a time. It was like once I felt safe with money and I had a savings, then I was like, okay, now this job, that it's still from the UK. This is the last connection to the UK. I don't think I want to go back into the workforce again for an American company. So that's kind of what happened next, was like I healed, I grieved, I saved my money. And then when I was ready, that felt safe. Then I was like ready for the next kind of layer of the onion to get peeled back. Yeah. Which was, I don't think I want to leave this part-time job as a marketing director for a UK company and go and work for an American tech company.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that really stood out is you said I was a child having a child. Like I was back in my childhood.
Yes.
And what you're referring to is when we are around our family, we tend to revert back to the roles that we had when we were kids.
Yes.
Right. So it's like suddenly your mom's giving you unsolicited advice. And suddenly your dad's like, and it's because they care, but it's just, that's such a mind fuck.
It is. And that is what made me and my mom have conversations that we had never had, because I was not afraid to assert myself. When it was me, I was, because I wanted to be like the good daughter. But when it came to me being a mother, I was like, I am the parent. I love you. I know you're trying to help, but that is not how you help. Like, this is how it's going to be. And that was the catalyst, honestly, for me and my mom beginning to like heal our relationship too. I mean, it's obviously like eldest daughters and mothers have a very like complex relationship, and that's still the case. But I think that me being a mom really like kind of made me come into my own, and I think have conversations with my mom that I never had before. Yeah. And I think it made her respect me and see me different, because even though we clashed, she seceded and was like, okay, no, you're right. Like, okay, that's not my
beautiful.
place.
Yeah. And the other thing that stood out through your entire story, which obviously I know your story, but I don't think I've ever heard it in the timeline that I've heard it today, or in the detail that I've heard it today. But what stands out to me is that you just mentioned, you referred to an onion, right? And that's what healing really is. And leaving your first marriage wasn't the end all be all. That was literally the beginning of this journey, right? Going to London was another piece, coming back home, working with that nurse. And then, so there's just so many people think, oh, like once I make one courageous decision, I'm done. But it's like one courageous decision leads to so many more.
Yes.
And sometimes we can feel, I mean, we've had this conversation, right? Where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just so tired, right? Like, why can't it just be easy for a little bit? Like,
I know.
Yeah. And we're constantly being pushed to make these decisions, even now, as we continue to reinvent ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that like, it does feel like, the thing is, I try to remind myself too, like I could just ignore it and keep doing the same thing, but I'm choosing to sit in this discomfort because I know that like what's on the other side of it is like, you know, is really me being more of me. But like, it does feel like that. It's kind of like once you answer the nudge, you do it, and then there's another one that's like, okay, what's next?
Exactly.
Okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? And you're like, wait. So it does feel like that. And I think it's like what we're kind of constantly doing is we're reinventing what goes in the comfort zone. So I always like, even with my clients, I talk about how there's things that feel like comfort zone, which is like super easy. You don't even think about it. And then it's like if you were to think of 3 circles, the left circle would be comfort zone. The middle circle would be like your growth zone, like you're uncomfortable. And then there's danger zone. Like that is like, I'm terrified. I can't even move.
Yeah.
Like I just can't do it. And I think what we're constantly doing in our like journey of like courage and just self-discovery is like moving things from danger zone to growth zone and being like whatever feels like challenging now, like a year from now, you're going to be like, oh, I remember when I thought that was like such a big deal and I was so scared and now it's fine. And I'm sure all of us have like stories of things that like were terrifying once or we thought we like couldn't do that became more like normal. And that's really like all I've been doing this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay. So, as you are where you are now with dating.
You're gonna ask me about dating. Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is just the next, it's the next nudge,
That's
right?
It is.
Yeah. So as we're talking about following the nudge and how it continues to be uncomfortable, the current nudge for you is getting back in the dating game. And that has been almost like the dance, to use Liz's terms for it, right? Like the dance of yes and no.
Yes.
And I mean, feel free to share whatever you feel like sharing here, but tell us a little bit about that struggle.
So it's so funny because I think that when I'm looking back at like my past growth, it's so easy for me to be like this. And then I followed the nudge and then I did this thing. But because I'm in it now, I'm like, oh, wait, this is the part where I'm like, I don't want to do this right now. And I'm noticing where I'm fighting the nudge. And like, it's reminding me how a lot of the times before we say yes to the nudge, we say no to it for a really long time. And I'm in that now of like saying no. And the people who like love me and like know me and are like advocating for me are like, let's explore that. So I think the nudge now has just felt like I think about like my reasons for not moving towards what I want.
We're going to use the tarot card deck now.
Okay, we're going to do it. I think it's funny because this is real time happening. So this is literally like my process for growth is that I go through a time where I feel like I want to go and do something. I'm scared of that thing. Then I come up with a bunch of reasons why I'm not ready to do it. And then I totally just go with that. And I go, yeah, no, it's just like not a good time. And then I don't do it. And then I end up back at the same place again, which is, but I still really want a relationship. Like, I feel like I'm in such a good place for it. Like,
can we talk about the self-awareness there? Like you just called out your own cycle.
Yeah. I just ended up at the same place. I just was like, well, the reasons for waiting haven't really changed, to be honest. And then I'm like, well, I don't really see where things are going to change. Like when is it going to be a good time? Because my cycle is like, oh, there's going to be a better time for me to do this. And there just isn't. And I keep waiting and I'm like, I just keep finding other reasons to wait. And then I eventually get to the point where I'm like, I don't like my reasons. I don't like my reasons for waiting. Because when I say, well, I'm waiting because I kind of take a step back and I'm just like, okay, is this going to be different in 6 months? How? Do I like my reasons for waiting? What's going to be, different in a few months? And so I think I'm realizing now with dating that the reasons for, well, it's just not a good time. Well, my baby's too small. Well, now she's this. Well, now I'm figuring out how to start my business. Okay, well, now I need to figure out how to get more clients. So I need to like focus more on that. Okay, well, now I have a lot of clients. I have too many clients, so I can't date. Oh, well, now I'm focusing on scaling. So like, it's really not good because like a lot of my energy is going towards that. Like it's literally never going to end. So now I need to just stop the cycle of activating my dating apps and then pausing them because that's my cycle now. I will go on them. I will get up the courage to show up for a few weeks. And then I will look for signs that it's not going to work. And then I will pull back and go, see, it's not going to work. And I call this out because even though I've done all these quote unquote like brave things, like I've done these brave things, I still am deeply trying to protect myself from being hurt. And that's the courage cycle. It's just like, I don't like this. I'm going to go towards it. Now I want to pull back from it. And it's like, I'm either going to process the discomfort or I'm going to just completely stop this altogether. And I think I'm starting to be more on to myself that this is just the cycle that I'm always in.
Where do you want the card from?
I would say the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Whale, communicate clearly. I think what this is saying is that you haven't like right now you're admitting what you want, right? Yeah. You're admitting that dating is something that you want to get back into, but it's not something that you've been hiding behind your business almost, right? You haven't been really clear about what you're actually desiring. Yeah. And remember, our desires are the arrows that give us directions. Yeah. And I haven't put it out into I haven't actually said it out loud. I think I'll whisper it to myself. I'll think about it, but I don't tell my friends. I don't tell people like I desire to be in a relationship. This is the sort of relationship I want to be in. This is the sort of partner I want to be in. But I think about like with my business, I'm very clear about what I desire. But with a relationship, I'm just like, well, I'm just going to act like I don't care. And then I just hope it happens. Like that's sort of like, it's not going to be created that way. Mm-hmm. So I also think with communicate clearly, it's like, I'm afraid to communicate clearly in a relationship because of my past. And I think that the point is probably for me to date and communicate clearly and know that that's the process. Like there's no way out of me just meeting the perfect person. And then I don't ever have to like set a boundary or ask for what I need because he's just going to know. Exactly.
Yeah. It's like, I hate it because this is just the resistance. Like, it is the thing. The resistance isn't going to go away. This is just my resistance this season. So I'm like, okay, it's not, I'm just uncomfortable.
The resistance isn't going to go away. That's so true.
Yeah. It just gets louder. Pulling another card.
Yeah, a different deck. We haven't even read the clearly communicate thing yet, but we will.
Yeah. I had a realization when the card that you pulled for me yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think I was trying to avoid discomfort. Like I wanted to pick a time to go for this thing, like to date, where I was going to be fully ready to show up as my best self and just do all the right things and end up with the right person. And like, I think I was trying to avoid the things that I felt hard for me in the past. And that's never going to happen. Like, I'm never going to just find somebody who like knows everything that I want and need and is just like the perfect person. Like, I'm going to have to show up and take up space in the relationship. And in ways like it's going to be scary no matter what, even if I find the quote unquote ideal partner.
Exactly.
I'm looking for it.
This one. Okay, so let me read since you already had a realization as well from the card yesterday, and then we have the whale card in front of us. Let me look up the description.
Yeah. That's interesting that whale is communicate clearly.
Yeah. Okay. Whales, known for their beautiful outwardly singing, can enhance your ability to express and communicate. When a whale shows up for you, consider whom you could have better communication with. Is there somebody your intuition has been telling you to check in with or give more attention to? This is your wake-up call to listen and act on those nudges. Because whale also represents healing ancestral or lineage traumas, you can call on whale to help you have healing conversations with family members. Be honest with yourself and open to the communication portal. You have the most powerful ally by your side now.
Okay. I mean, I know that it's talking about healing conversations with family members, but like, I think with me pulling it for dating, I think the healing is like with me because I have a lot of thoughts about the relationship choices that I've made and like trusting myself. That sounds like such a burn, but like it is. No, like
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing at the card that just popped out for you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm scared. Oh, what? It says yes. Just say yes.
Yep. I'll read the card for you. This is from a different deck.
This is the thing when you ask the universe for guidance, or Erica, it's gonna feel like a slap in the face of just like, you already know the answer. This is what it is. I swear they're just reflecting back what I already know, but I'm like afraid to say out loud.
Okay. So this is one of the confirmation cards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It says, just say yes. Yes, 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 yes.
Don't what is the last thing? Don't overthink it.
Don't overthink it. Just say yes.
Well, this part of me that wants to fight that is like, well, they just need to ask me out then.
Yeah, but how can they ask you out if they don't know that you're open for business?
I know. Right now I paused my dating apps.
Yeah, I want you to think, like, imagine that you are a cafe. Okay.
I know.
You have all your lights turned off. You don't have the signs outside.
I know.
You're not marketing yourself. Like, think about if this was your business, right? Like,
yeah.
Nobody would know that you're open for business. Nobody knows that you're even energetically available for this.
Okay. So this makes so much sense when it's business, because I was like, it would be like if I had a coffee shop and then I'd be like, no one's bought a coffee in 2 hours. I'm going to shut down the shop.
That's exactly what's happening.
That's okay.
When you're still even figuring out who your ideal client is, right? Like, you're going to renovate the coffee shop to make it perfect once you find your ideal client.
I know. I'm like, if I'm talking about business, that would be like, I never want to have a sales call unless they're going to say yes. And it's like the perfect client. But I'm like, I'm ready to go on dates, but I think I'm so looking for rejection. I'm so looking for the signs it's not going to work that the minute anything resembles that, I want to shut the shop down.
But how can we change rejection to like, that just wasn't a good fit?
Yeah, I know.
Just like you would on a sales call, right? If somebody showed up with a bunch of red flags as a client, you wouldn't worry about them not signing. Do you feel stuck in your life or business and aren't sure what's next for you? Do you feel like everyone seems to have things figured out, but you feel like you're missing something? I totally hear you. I was in your exact shoes just a few years ago, and this is why I've created my coaching programs. Courage Driven Latina is a 12-month group coaching program designed to help you take action on your courage project in just 90 days. Whether you're in the middle of a life transition, struggling with self-doubt, tired of starting and stopping a project, or feeling lonely in your goals and dreams, then this program is for you. A courage project can be starting a business, launching a podcast, starting your healing journey, or building the confidence to date after a divorce. No matter the project, my Courage Framework will help you overcome any obstacles and help you make your dreams a reality. Inside of Courage Driven Latina, you will build confidence, courage, and find a supportive community of driven women cheering you on every step of the way. Magnetic Mastermind is my advanced program for women entrepreneurs and leaders. This program is for those of you who have already started but are ready to grow without the hustle. You'll improve your strategy, spirituality, and self. You'll use my magnetic framework to attract, not chase, dream clients and opportunities. Remember, you are the creator of your reality. Don't let procrastination hold you back any longer. Go to theericacruz.com, that's Erica with a K, under Work With Me. It's also linked down below in the show notes where you can learn more about these programs, you can join the waitlist, and you will be the first to know when we open the doors. I cannot wait to work with you. Now, let's get back to the show.
That's true.
But in relationships, it's personal and it's valid, right? Because of what you've gone through.
Yeah. I think it's like, I don't want to be rejected. So whenever I perceive that I'm going to be rejected or that I'm being rejected, then I just want to, I want to beat them to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we do that. I do that like a lot because this feels
showing up at the coffee shop. Let's turn off the lights and lock the doors.
Like I didn't even want this coffee shop in the first place. Exactly. Like that's me. And I'm just like, I didn't even care. I was just doing this. And I'm like, it comes up with dating for me. It doesn't come up as much. Like we were talking about this yesterday around how like, I don't have those same thoughts about friendships. I feel like everyone wants to be my friend. It's just like my little like naive, innocent me as like a kid. Like I'm just like my daughter in that sense. But when it comes to relationships, I'm very much like on the lookout.
Yeah.
And I feel like I want to like own that it's like, it doesn't matter how many courageous things I've done. There's certain things that feel a lot more vulnerable for me, and dating is one of them because of my past.
It makes sense.
Yeah. I think I just think like, I don't want to go through this again. And wouldn't it just be easier if I just never dated again and I just like stayed single where I'm in control of everything and no one can hurt me in that way? I'm willing to be hurt in lots of ways. I open myself up to hurt and rejection in lots of ways, but there's a particular type of rejection that I think my body is like, we don't ever want to experience that again. And I think that just knowing that, it's like, that's why this feels like such a risk. It's not that it's the end of the world or life or death, but I think sometimes certain things feel scarier to us because we want to not like there's just certain pain that like we just don't want to experience again.
Exactly.
And I think
but
that's
you're not the same Mariela that you were with
Yeah.
your past relationships.
Yes, this is true.
Those past relationships
Oh,
have taught you so much about who you are and what to look for. Okay, this is the last card that we're pulling because I also have questions about your business.
Fallopian tubes.
Yes, so you got fallopian tubes. Notice there's like a rainbow and she's like laying on the tubes.
Yeah.
Here, this is a really beautiful card. And then there's like roots as well.
Oh, wow.
Like very grounded. It's number 46.
Wow. Yeah, that does. I was like, that just feels like femininity, nurturing. I don't know.
Okay, fallopian tubes. I dance within the polarity. When an egg is released from an ovary during ovulation, it travels through the fallopian tubes. Here, it might pass through without event, or the egg might potentially meet with sperm and have made their way past the cervix and the uterus. The connection begins a new conversation for the body to navigate. As a meeting place, the fallopian tubes represent a call towards deeper unity within yourself. You are being asked at this time to practice merging the doing and the being parts of yourself. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is just relevant to everything.
Yeah.
Right? You may identify these as your masculine and feminine aspects. I was actually going to ask you about this.
Oh my God. Because I'm like, this is exactly the freaking dating thing that I'm like struggling with. To be like, I want to be in my feminine, but I don't feel safe.
Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm. I feel like that's the story for a lot of driven women. We feel safer in our masculine energy. And for those of you listening, masculine is your doing, your goal setting, your action taking.
Yeah.
Femininity is receiving, which can be really hard for us, especially as women of color.
Yeah.
Okay, so you may identify these as your masculine and feminine aspects, the lunar and the solar, or the light and the shadow sides. The words are not as important as your personal experience of the energy that they represent. Take time to explore where these polarities meet within you, noticing where one plays a more assertive role than another. This is an opportunity to explore these different parts of you, ensuring equal value with each end of the spectrum and staying curious about where they connect and dance together. A journal prompt for you is, where in my life do I actively pursue my desires?
Oh God.
Where do I relax and choose to receive?
Yeah, no. The answer is no. I feel like as soon as I saw this card, I was like, this is going to be something about masculine and feminine and me not feeling safe to like let some, like, I don't know, just for me to feel softer or for like letting somebody lead, because I feel like I have to be on the lookout. And I think just receiving is hard for me too.
Yeah, like, especially being the eldest daughter.
Yeah, I think I'm like, no, I'm the one. And I do a lot. That's the thing, is that in my life, I'm a coach. I support a lot of clients. I'm pouring into their cups. I have a daughter. You know, I'm so used to doing that. Like, I know how to do that. I think I've gotten better at it, but it depends who I'm receiving from. Like, I think that there's some people that I'm like, yes, I'll say that I need help, or yes, like I'll accept it. But I think that in dating, that still feels hard for me. Like, for me to say like, hey, I'm feeling like a little bit like I haven't heard from you, you know, like even the idea of me being like, if I haven't heard from someone, like for me to say something, or like, hey, that thing that you said, like it kind of hurt my feelings. Like, I'd rather do anything than say that. I'd just be like, oh, this is just not going to work out. I'm just not going to say anything. Like, I just want to crawl into a cave, which is hard.
Yeah. That's valid. But I feel like, as much as you lead in your business, I've seen you go from running your business from being very masculine to more feminine. And I do believe that in certain, I was actually talking to, we have the same therapist. I was talking to our therapist about this. Mm-hmm. I was like, how is it that I could feel so confident in certain areas of my life and feel so insecure in other areas? she was like, that's totally normal. But I think just having
That's
that evidence in your business that you were able to navigate masculine energy to feminine energy, why can you not do that in dating, right? And like, because there's that part of you running your business that's already doing it. Like it's already
that's
there, it already
true.
exists. It's not something you have to go and learn and create.
That's true. I think like for me, it works really well to give myself evidence that I've already done a similar thing.
Yeah.
It's just that it's a different context because I allow myself to receive in my business because I have coaches. I let my friends hold, like you, like hold space for me. I will say I'm having a hard day. Like this is what's happened. Like I don't hold back at all. I never feel like I'm bothering. I never feel like any of those things.
Yeah.
I never feel like, oh, I'm having too many needs right now. Like they're going to get done. They're going to get tired of me and like not want to be my friends anymore. Or like I'm asking for too much coaching, whatever. I'm just like, whatever, this is where I'm at. Which helps to kind of be like, I am doing those things. It's just, it feels harder in this other capacity. I think even just bringing awareness to that is like, it's not that I'm not capable of doing it. It's just that this particular like circumstance feels scarier because it reminds me of a past hurt. And I think we're so motivated, like humans, like we're so motivated by like avoiding pain. We don't even seek pleasure. Like I don't even know there's like a statistic about like we're more motivated to avoid pain than seek pleasure, that it's like cool if like my needs are met and like this is it, like I'm just going to stay here, that it's like, oh no, that might be a danger, so I'm just like not going to go do it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a danger. It's been a danger zone in the past. And I think I know that that's my work. I actually feel like my intuition is telling me that by me following that, it's going to show up in a lot of other areas of my life too. Because I think that a lot of the holding on and the planning and the resistance and the being in my head, the work for me is to practice it in like relation, not in my head, because it's the one place that I haven't like let myself explore in like a really long time.
Yeah. And another thought that I think would be helpful for you to practice, or that I would like to offer to you, is the right partner wants you to ask for your needs. They want to meet
That's
your
true.
needs. And the people that you were in relationships in the past were not ideal partners. These were trauma bonds.
They
You're
were
aware of this, right? But the right partner wants to help you with your needs. They want to meet you with where you're at.
Yeah. I think that that's hard for me. And I know that that's logically true. I'm at this place of like, I believe it's possible. I see it. I think one thing that's good is like, I'm starting to pick up on evidence of like where I see it exist in other people, where I'm like, oh, that's so nice. Like we were all just together with our friend Liz, who like left yesterday, but I even noticed like she left this morning. Yeah. And I was even like noticing like her partner like anticipating needs and just being like, oh, they need this. Oh, I'm just gonna go grab this. And I was like, oh, this is so nice. Like this reminds me of my dad. Like my dad is very much like, he won't say the words, but he is like, I am gonna anticipate like your needs, and then I'm just gonna do it, and I'm not gonna expect any praise. I'm just gonna walk away. But like it makes him happy. And if he doesn't have that, I think that actually like wouldn't be good for him, because he likes being of service.
Exactly.
And so it's like I have so much evidence of that. It's just receiving it because I haven't received it in a relationship. So I think that's my work. I know that's my work because I'm resisting it.
But if you can see it, it can be yours, right? Like the fact you can notice this in your dad and in Liz's fiance partner, like you can, you know it's possible for you, because or else you wouldn't. I wouldn't even come into your world.
That's
right?
true.
That wouldn't even be visible for you.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And I think that is, it's like I almost have to like admit to myself that like I desire that and how nice that would be, because I'm such a like, my love language of like what I want to receive is acts of service. I'm not even like, you don't even need to tell me stuff. Like not to be like, you would never need to, but I'm just like, acts of service is just like the best thing ever for me, because it's like you're showing me, because I have to do so much for everybody else that like if somebody were to do that for me, I feel like that would be like the ultimate way to show me love.
Yeah.
And oh God, that's what I'm going to do this year.
I also want to point out for everybody listening, this was like a very courageous thing for you to do on this podcast, because everything you had talked about leading up to this point, it's in the past and you've been able to process it. And then we talked about something you're currently working through. Yeah. And I think that this just humanizes you as a coach, as a person, where you still are working through your stuff, right? Like we're always going to be working through something, and that's totally okay. Yeah. So kudos to you. Thank you for being so vulnerable and like speaking about this with us. Maybe we'll have you and your partner on the podcast.
I know. I was gonna say, I was already like, well, now the cards have been manifesting this man for me, and I feel like I'm allowing myself to talk about it, which is super powerful. And this is like, honestly, this is like the first time I've ever talked about something that I haven't already like gone through and like accomplished. You know what I'm saying? Like I say this in air quotes, but like this is like the first time I've talked about something I'm actively feeling like I'm working through it. I feel insecure about it. I feel vulnerable about it. I'm still in resistance. And I'm glad that you asked me about dating, to be honest, because I will not bring the conversation to dating because I know I'm in avoidance. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, don't want to talk about it. So the fact of me even bringing it up in like our conversations is vulnerable because I know that if I bring it up, it's going to be reflected back to me. And I have to be like ready to like receive that because I could very easily just hide and not. So I'm kind of glad because I know that like this is almost going to be like evidence one day I'm going to listen to this and be like, yep, I really had a lot of feelings about this. I've been resisting this for years. I tried and I've stopped and I've tried and I've stopped like multiple times. And sometimes that the bigger like the fear you're pushing through, sometimes it takes a few cycles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's gold right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, I am so excited we talked about that. I want to ensure that we talk about, so we'll get out of like your dating business now. For those of you wondering, I've been dating very unsuccessfully lately, so it's been...
Depends how you look at it, Erica, because I'm like, ooh, this is all like success because I feel like you meet yourself each time, you know?
Yeah, that's true. It's getting better and better. I'm getting better at asking for what I want.
Yeah, you're doing the things that freaking terrify me. Like when you talk about that, I was just like, oh my God, like I could never say that. I would just be like, it's fine.
Like,
or
I was yesterday.
And I saw the text and I was like, there was a part where you said, I accept your apology. And I was like, that made me cringe. I was like, I feel like I could never say I accept your apology because that's like saying, and yes, you should have apologized. Everything in me would have been like, it's okay, it's fine.
No, I think it was thank you for apologizing.
Thank you for apologizing. But I'm like, I don't even know if you realize like how terrifying that would be for me.
I think for me, it was like, if there's not an apology here, there's not a conversation to be had.
Whew. Okay.
And then I'm feeling petty today because I like was silent treatmenting today. So like,
yeah.
No, I felt that that's not true.
But a little distant.
There just hasn't been a text today, and I wasn't going to initiate it.
Yes. But I'm like, you still have been you've been showing up in ways that I am currently still scared to show up as. And you could only do that in relation to like dating.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've been trying this since we went to Mexico City.
I know. But like you've continued to do it. And so for someone like me who freaking wants to delete the apps and pause the notifications, I see you continuing to show up to dating as hella brave because I just stop. And like no shame on people who start and stop, but I'm like, that's just the cycle that I'm in because I'm really, really scared. But when I see you continue, it's just like that's more than I've been able to do. So I think sometimes even when we're like, oh, you know, this like hasn't worked or unsuccessfully dated, I'm just like, dude, you've been doing way more than like I possibly could do. And you've learned so much about yourself. And I've seen how you've shown up differently that I think I have to remember that to be like, oh, but that's also in store for me too. That's part of the point. It's like to work on the things that feel hard in relation, not in my head, not in therapy. Yes, but like I have to just get in the arena basically and play. Yeah. I can't just strategize.
Yeah. And remember what my disasters were like at the beginning. Like I wasn't able to say, thank you for apologizing.
Yes.
Or expecting apologies from people from the beginning.
Right.
So, and you've been there through that, which I think is really helpful.
Yes, exactly. So I'm like, that's what the growth looks like. It doesn't always mean like getting the final end outcome that you think it's going to be. Sometimes it's like, I become better at like I like the way I'm showing up more.
Right.
Then that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about your business.
Okay.
We're already at an hour.
Yes.
So, you eventually left the job and started your business and took people on one-on-one. And I've seen you we've been friends for years at this point. And I feel like I've seen Mariela create different versions of her business almost. And we have to evolve, right? We do have to evolve.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about who you work with and
Mhm.
what you help them do.
So I work mostly with daughters of immigrants who are entrepreneurs. Most of them are coaches, consultants, agency owners, done-for-you providers, and creatives. I also work with women in corporate who, want help developing their leadership skills, either for promotion or because they have a new team. Not all my clients in corporate are women of color. So I'm a leadership coach across the board because I'd say even for my entrepreneur clients, I help them with leadership, like advocating for themselves, being thought leaders, being confident decision makers, trusting themselves, all of those things. And so I help women of color to extract their thought leadership and create demand through their thought leadership and their story, and infuse that thought leadership and their story into the way that they serve, so that they're unlike anybody else in the market, and they really can create, a movement that matters, off the back of that. But all of that takes self-belief. It takes leadership skills. And I think that's evolved. That's definitely evolved, because I wouldn't have given that answer 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And as we talk about this ideal client of yours, I can't help but think, okay, we just heard you talk about being this marketing executive. And there's so many people listening to this podcast that are feeling like they're just stuck in their lives.
Yeah.
And like what they're doing right now is a waste of time. And I think you and I are both evidence of everything you do supports you. I mean, like this tech setup happened because I worked in tech. Like what we just did right now.
That's true.
Because of my years of tech experience.
Yes.
But your like reclamation, your mastermind wouldn't exist unless you like constantly reclaimed your power and all of the different pieces that we just heard today, but also just your corporate experience of being able to help people step into leadership. So what do you say to clients that maybe don't feel like they're wasting their time, but you know that it's part of their bigger mission and it's helping them get to where they need to go?
Yes. I'm glad you asked that question, because I'll use like corporate terms sometimes with my clients, because many of the women that come to me are like former corporate. And so I'll say like everything that you did before, including the life you've lived, is a transferable skill.
So good.
Because I think they think, number one, their life is separate, or they'll think, oh, but I spent all these years doing this thing and now I'm going to do a completely different thing. I'm new. And like anytime anyone's like, I don't have any experience, and I'm just like, that's literally not true. Like almost in anything you do, unless you completely chose something completely different, no one ever does that though. We typically we always bring ourselves with us no matter what. So that's what I would say, is that even your perceived failures are transferable skill, because you learned something about yourself. You learned either what not to do, or you learned self-compassion, or you learned how to hold space for big emotion. Your failures are transferable skill. Your story, your identity, the things that didn't work out, your professional experience, all of it is a transferable skill, even if it's not what you're like, quote unquote, like selling or doing. It's just, it's part of a little toolbox that we create. And in any given circumstance, we can go and like pull from that toolbox, even if we're not actively thinking about it. So I don't believe in the concept of like wasted time. And I think like my story is very reflective of that, of like, I'm now in my 40s, but I don't see like the things that I've done as wasted time. I have my moments, right? But I'm just like, I see the outcome of like the years that I spent making decisions to get to like this place. That I couldn't be the person that I was if it wasn't for all of the things that like didn't work out, in air quotes, So there's no wasted time.
Yes, I love it. So how can people work with you?
So currently I work with a handful of clients privately for leadership coaching and business coaching. Some of my clients have never sold an offer before. Some of them, which I coach differently, are trying to surpass 6 figures. So with private coaching, there's leadership in corporate, and then there's business coaching. And I also have Reclamation Mastermind, which is for folks who have made like 25K or more, and they really want to center their thought leadership and really like create demand and speaking engagements through thought leadership. So,
okay. And you just had an amazing speaking engagement.
Yes.
Can you talk about it?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the experience.
Yeah, that speaking engagement was like literally like me and my concepts like in action, even though again, I just do it like naturally. So like I just spoke for QuickBooks at Intuit headquarters last week, and it came through an opportunity through a mutual friend who hosts QuickBooks podcast, a small business podcast. And I met them in person through you and like mutual friends when we were in Puerto Rico. And I just was like sharing my story, which is just a thing that I do naturally. But it was just through sharing my story that this person was like, I need you to be on my podcast because I just heard this tidbit of your story. So like your story is really powerful, like time and time and time again, and has shown me that like just own who you are and own your story, including the not shiny parts. I was on their podcast. And then from that, because I guess whatever they observed of me there, it wasn't
just a
any
podcast though, right? Or was there a podcast first?
I was on her podcast first.
Oh, her podcast. So
I was on
talking about
her
Janice.
podcast,
Janice.
Janice.
Shout out
Yes.
to Janice. She's
Yes.
always advocating for people.
She's amazing.
Always,
like
yeah.
such, I look up to her so much, right? So I was on her podcast, did not know that she also was the host of QuickBooks Small Business Podcast, which is huge because they have so many small business owners who are in their network. And I had to be personally recommended for this and then pass an interview process where they were interviewing me against multiple other people. It wasn't like, oh, this person recommended you, you're in. It was like, this person recommended you. We're going to be talking to other people this week. We're going to go ahead and do a mock interview and like fast track these questions. And I just answered the questions. And then they came back to me and they gave me the spot. And I was interviewed for like 45 minutes straight. I thought it was going to be a panel. It wasn't a panel. I was the panel. They interviewed me the whole time. And I was like, oh my God, I came from corporate. Now I'm coming as a speaker this time.
You are. But tell us a little bit about the experience of getting there.
So I had a moment where the night before the speaking engagement, it was literally like a week ago. I spoke on the phone with them. You know, they'd already told me that I got the spot, right? But the day before, we had a call to confirm details. And I said, okay, so how many other people are going to be on the panel? And they told me like, it's just you and Janice and Austin. And I was like, what? So like, it's just me. I was like, so they're not going to be talking to anybody else? They're like, nope, they're not going to be talking to anybody else. And I was like, okay, how many people are going to be there? And she's like, do you really want to know? And she's like, because I don't want to freak you out. And she's like, it'll be like 200 people. She's like, maybe 100 and something in the audience, but then we're going to also live stream it. And then we hung up and I was like, okay, this is fine. I was a little freaked out, but I was like, I'm excited. And then she texts me and she's like, so what time can I have the driver like pick you up? We're going to send a car for you. And I was like, okay, like, I guess I don't have to drive. Like I could drive. I'm in San Francisco. This thing was in Mountain View. And I gave her my address. And then I think after I sent her my address, it's kind of funny how like you don't recognize your growth moments until they happen. I remembered
all over my body as I'm doing this right now.
As I sent her that, she sent me back like, okay, your driver's scheduled. And then she sent me the screenshot and I was like, thanks. And I thought, I remember this feeling of like, I'm not worthy of having this driver come to me that I had 5 years ago. When I had back-to-back interviews. They were final interviews at Uber, Facebook, and Google for a different marketing roles. Mm-hmm. And they had sent a car for me. And I remember at the time being like, you're going to freaking send a car. I just thought it was the biggest thing. Like, you're going to send a car to pick me up. And my sister who works for Facebook at the time was like, they never sent me a car to like go interviews. She's like, you must be like a big deal. And so I think I was just like, I can't believe, and I turned down a job that I've talked about in my marketing around, it was around $250,000 total between salary and stock. So I turned down $250,000 job offer. And now I'm getting a car sent for me by a tech company to bring me to campus as a speaker. And I think it was such a full circle moment where I was like, I didn't think I was worthy of getting a car sent for me when I was interviewing for a job. Yet now I was like, okay, yeah, like send a car for me. That would be great.
And this is because of something you created.
Yes, it's for me. Yeah. Like no one can, and this is like why it reminded me, like, this is why I coach my clients on what I do, because no one can take that away from me. Like I'm sure were many other qualified people who were great that they interviewed, but like they chose me. And a job can't take that away. A partner can't like leave me and take that away. Like no one can take that away. Like as time goes on, I'm only going to become like more of a thought leader. My personal brand is going to be stronger. Like and that just was like, okay, I made it. Like in whatever way that means. Like I just felt like it was such a full circle moment for me to go to a tech company, not doing a job interview where I had to show them that I was the best person. It just felt like they were, welcoming me with open arms.
That is beautiful. Is there anything that I did not ask you that you'd like to share?
I think
because we can talk for days.
I know. Well, I'll share one thing that I shared at Intuit actually, because so many people reflected this back to me, and I thought it was such a simple thing that I was like, I think I should share it with you all since we were talking about the speaking engagement. Is they asked me like, what is one piece of advice that you would have? And they said for small business owners, but I actually think this is for everyone. And I was like, that's such a big question. Like one piece of advice, one mantra, one something I live by. And I was like, well, something that really anchors me when I'm thinking I'm doing something wrong or I'm in a rush or I feel like maybe something's not working is the knowing that like my success is inevitable. As long as I keep showing up, as long as I keep showing up for myself, I keep showing up to the challenge, to the problem. And so many people came back and was like, I needed to hear that. And so I think that whatever you are desiring, like it's inevitable that you will have a version of that, and it may be even better than what you imagined. It probably will be.
It probably will. That is so good. Okay, where can people find you?
Well, you can come and hang out with me. Now I have a new website. I wouldn't have said this before at marieladelaMora.com, or on Instagram, mariela.delamora. So I would love to hear if any part of this like stood out to you, resonated with you. I always love to hear what had an impact.
I am sure we're going to get tagged on many things from this episode.
Yeah.
My team will link all of those links down below. And yeah, just be sure to tag us both and let us know what your favorite part of this interview. I feel like we had like 4 interviews in one interview.
This is me because I have so many parts to my story that I'm just like, no, let's bring it all. And there's one more thing I would say, which is like, if you're even sitting in the discomfort, if you're even questioning everything, if you're even sitting just wondering like, what is life? Like you're on the right track.
Yeah, that's true. Because if you're not, that means you're so in your comfort zone that you're not even growing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm so like, I was telling you this last night whenever we were sitting out by the fire, and I said this to Kat as well, Kat del Carmen. I had seen a meme once that talked about how the best relationships are the ones that both people feel like they're the lucky ones. And I feel like I can translate this to friendship.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about you, Liz, and Kat. Like I feel like I'm the lucky one to have you all in my corner. But based on like what I've heard from you all, you feel the same way.
Yeah. It's so funny because you're saying that and I'm trying not to cut you off. But I'm like, okay, that's so nice. And also, yes. It's like, not to invalidate, but this is exactly what it feels like, right? Yeah. It's just like, no, like, I can't believe it, I think that all the time about our text thread has like saved me and uplifted me like more times than I can ever count. I for sure know like my life would be absolutely it would not be the same without you guys and without who I'm able to be in that text thread.
Yeah.
And in our friendship and in our life, but sometimes that's all we have, is just like this text thread. And like, I think it's like, it's been my lifeline, like more times than I can count.
No, I agree. And I was sharing with you all came to visit me in Southern California, and I was concerned because I'm used to just being alone. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's it going to be like?
Yeah.
Days. And the first few hours of you both being here, it was just like my cup was so full.
Yeah.
And now I actually wrote in my journal that like I was grieving that like Liz and our seat left and then tomorrow. And now it's like now I'm sad and I'm like, don't go.
I know. It's so funny because I'm just like, we never leave each other without being like, so when are we going to see each other again?
Exactly.
Which is such a beautiful thing to have.
Exactly. Amazing. Well, we are an hour and almost 20 minutes in.
Oh gosh, yes.
We're going to give the listeners a little break. You are going to be back on this podcast. Can you give us the name of your podcast? That's one thing you didn't share.
Yes, actually, thank you for asking. So my podcast is Cycle Breakers and Moneymakers. We actually just launched, but by the time you hear this, there should be plenty for you to binge on. It's a podcast for anyone who feels like they're breaking cycles in their family and they have bigger dreams. And breaking those cycles is going to help them to achieve that, whether it's making more money, starting, a business. So yes, please check it out.
Okay, perfect. We will link all of that down below. Mariela, thank you so much for being willing to do this. So
Yes.
last minute.
No, it's a joy. Like I loved today.
Amazing. Okay, everyone. Thanks for listening. We'll see you all next week. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theericacruz.com. That's Erica with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erica Cruz. That's Erica with a K, because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.